I came out of this whole experience much more stronger, much more flexible, ready to accept life as it is, with different abilities that other people don't have.
לראות את בני המשפחה שלך.
כן, בוודאי.
מזה כמה זמן לא ראית אותה?
יותר מחודש.
אורי נחום אהרנפלד, האם אתה רוצה למסור דרישת שלום את בני המשפחה שלך?
כן.
בבקשה, מה אתה רוצה לומר?
אני שבוע מלחמה, אורי בן נחום אהרנפלד, גר ברחוב רמב"ן 34, רחביה בירושלים, רוצה למסור דרישת שלום אל אמא ואבא ואחי מיכאל ואל רות אחותי ובעלה יחיאל. קודם רוצה אני להביע תודה על כך שנתנו לי את ההזדמנות על ידי כל קהיר למסור דרישת שלום ולספר באוזני ההורים שלי מה התרשמתי מאז שנפלתי בשבי המצרי. אמא ואבא, אני התרשמתי כי צריך שתהיו כמוני נגד המלחמה. אבי, אני זוכר אתה היטב את הדעות שלך נגד המלחמה. היית אבא מדבר מן הלב, והיית אבא מדבר אמת, ועכשיו אני מאמין היטב שהיית אדם הוגה דעות, לכן אני ממליץ באוזני כל בני המשפחה.
Uri, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, because as you're aware, there are a lot of people who are trying to deal with a very new situation as the world is responding to a coronavirus. And there are a lot of people who are feeling really worried about the future. Some have lost their jobs, some are trying to find ways of just putting food on the table, and some are feeling really restless and trapped at home, unable to see their friends and family. Now, you have been through a horrifying situation where you were trapped, you were imprisoned, you were tortured with no idea whether you would live or die. And I thought that we could learn something from you, even if it's just to give us a bit of perspective, but the intention really is to learn some valuable tools when it comes to dealing with situations that force us to come face to face with that sense of powerlessness, the lack of control, not knowing what tomorrow will bring, fear, many of the experiences that you encountered in an incomprehensibly extreme situation while you were a prisoner of war. So first, let's hear a bit about your story. You were a 19-year-old soldier, as I understand it, in Israel's Defense Force.
I was 20 years old.
20 years old, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was serving. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to kind of just set it up that you were in Israel's Defense Force during the Yom Kippur War, which was in 1973, yes. For those who just aren't aware of the history of this country. And then you were captured by the Egyptians and you were taken prisoner of war. So tell us what happened.
Well, I was stationed at the most southern Israeli outpost along the Suez Canal. And we fought for 8 days, 180 hours. And the IDF couldn't rescue us due to the fact that the whole borderline, was captured by the Egyptians at that time. And we were ordered, after those 8 days, to go into captivity to Egypt. We were all wounded. Some badly, severely wounded, some less, but we were all wounded.
הרשימה אצלי, אם לא להתחיל לדבר. חיובי יבוא. אמור שלי. כאן רנן, חיובי יבוא. רות 42 כאן רנן עבור. כאן 42 עוד עבור. רעננה מתחיל לעבור. 42, ממשיך. כאן רעננה 1, פלג אביחי, עבור. 42, במידה ואתה יכול, זה המספרים שלי עבור. חיובי, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, עבור. כאן 42. אם אתה יכול, תציין לי גם בריא או פצוע עבור. כאן רעננה, פצוע קשה עבור. רוצה. תתנה עבור. 10, מה העניינים? 10. הכל בסדר. מה נשמע עבור? בחיים, האם יודע מה קרה לפיני עבור? כאן 10. אני יודע שביטון נפצע, פיני לא יודע, מקווה לפגוש אותו במחנה עבור. רות, אם תפגוש אותו, תמסור לו גז. כאן רנן, רות, תצלצל אליי הביתה, ואתה יודע את המספר, תמסור תצלצל ממני, תגיד שמקווה להתראות בקרוב, הם רות. סולטו 11, בסוף שלי את מספר הטלפון שלך בבית, עבור. כאן סולטייס 28 11 עבור. רות 2811 תיקון 2811 עבור. כאן 2811 עבור. שלילי 2811 4
And so we did. I went to Egypt. I spent there almost 2 months, totally isolated in a small dungeon, very small cell, about 2 meters on 2 meters, by my own. And slowly, after I a little bit recovered, at least mentally, from my wounds that I got wounded during fighting, I understood that I must create a daily program to be able to survive it and pass the time through. I never knew how long I'm going to stay there. I was prepared to stay there for years. And I decided that to be able to survive, I must force myself to have a daily program for all kind of activities to make sure that I'll keep my insanity and stay as possible as I could busy. No matter the wounds that I got wounded during the war. And so I did. So
what kind of activities were you able to do? You talked about this tiny cell. I understand when you got there, you had a sack over your head and you used to kind of lift it up a little bit if you could with your hands were tied behind your back to see if it was night and day. There was blood on the walls. There was excrement on the walls. How were you able to find, obviously once that sack was taken off, activities to busy yourself with?
I forced myself to do all kinds of activities. So first of all, almost every day, if I was able to, I moved the sacks that I had over my head, and I started to clean the cell with my hands. It took me some hours, but I had to do it. The idea was not to clean the cell. The idea was to be busy. And then I had a time that I made the meditation basically to force myself not to think about certain things that I learned that bring me into uh, bad, low feelings, situations, thoughts, and I had to make sure that I won't get there. For instance, if I knew that if I think about food, I was starving all day for the whole time, and I learned very quickly that if I think about food, it brings me physical pain. So I had to make sure that it won't happen. So by the meditation I made, I brought all kind of positive thoughts into my head, and not letting the negative things touch me.
That takes a lot of mental discipline. Can you talk us through how you managed to do that, to shift your focus from the things that were perhaps creating your suffering in terms of your situation and move your mind into that more positive frame of thinking?
It's a matter that it took me a few days to learn it, but I noticed that I have to physically close my eyes, to breathe slowly and arrange breathing correctly, and slowly bringing up thoughts that improve my mental situation. And that was very important. I learned it very quickly that if I won't do it, I get into a very bad mental situation. So it was kind of a meditation. It was thinking about the seashore, about nature, about not about people, about the wildlife, all kind of things that I learned that they do help.
Wow, that's amazing. And when I think about your story, I really wonder if you reflect on this in a particular way. The fact that you weren't actually part of that unit at the Suez Canal, you'd in fact volunteered to be there because you thought perhaps the conditions were more favourable. You'd heard that the soldiers were there serving in shorts and had flip-flops and were by the water. Do you think about it in terms of the fact that, you know, we move forward in life kind of expecting one scenario, but really we have no idea what might come.
You're right.
Do you reflect on that in a particular way?
That's part of my luck. I think that basically I came out of this whole experience much more stronger, much more flexible, ready to accept life as it is, with different abilities that other people don't have. And I'm happy with with the result.
Did you feel that way when you first were released? Were you able to go straight to that acceptance phase of the fact that you can see what you gained from that experience? How did you get to that place of acceptance?
No, it takes time. It takes time. At first, I was definitely I was very angry and about what happened. But during the years, I learned that I have abilities and strength to do things that a lot of people can't. And it took me some years. And I have no doubts that in the last decade, I'm happy. I feel that I gained a lot from the situation, really.
Give us a bit of insight as to how big of a leap that is for you to say, I'm almost glad, I don't know if I can put those words in your mouth, that this situation happened. Talk us through what actually happened to you in isolation when it came to, for example, the torture.
In isolation?
Yes, rather when you were in captivity.
listen, it's a terrible situation. From freedom in 1 second into a situation that you hardly control even your breathing. I mean, not at all. I became nothing, really, nothing, totally nothing. I couldn't control anything in my life. It's a situation that you search for any kind of a small, tiny possibility to ease life during that situation. I gotta give you an example. If I was taken into interrogation, I was very glad, even though glad, I was happy because I had some interaction with other human beings. No matter that during the interrogations I was tortured, sometimes terribly, really, physically, mentally, tortures that affected me. I can't ignore it. But during the time, I was happy that I had some contact with another human being and preferred it than to stay in the isolated cell.
And talk us through what we're talking about in terms of the fact that you endured torture. I mean, some of the things that were done to you, you know, your mind can't even go there. Can you tell us some examples of what was done to you?
They beated me with everything. I mean, it could be bamboo sticks, rubber hoses, uh, guns. I got electric shocks from a car battery. My fingernails, some of them were taken out. I felt sometimes that I am at the entrance to hell. Really, I passed away many times during the tortures. It's hard to explain to somebody who didn't uh, experience such an experience that sometimes I preferred to be there and not to be in the small cell. I preferred to feel, I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it, but it was for me having an interaction with another person, having a possibility to move to the corridors of the jail from the interrogation room into my cell. Uh, it was, for me, it was a benefit. I mean, I moved, I saw people, I I had the possibility a little bit to live differently than being tied up in the small cell.
And so I know that one of the torturous experiences that you endured was being hung by the back of your knees for hours on end. In fact, it damaged your ability to walk. And then you talk about the fact that almost loneliness and isolation perhaps was worse than that. How did you deal with the loneliness?
Look, it is easier. I'll tell you something, which is one of the lessons I learned. It is much easier to deal with physical injury than to deal with mental injury. Much easier. Physical injury, first of all, the wounds after a while disappear. You might stay a little bit crushed up and crippled a little bit, but you learn to live with it. I mean, you see the scars. It's okay. With the mental injuries, it's very hard to cope.
But when you talk about, sharing your experience and what you learned with soldiers now in terms of the mental state that you need to find for yourself, what lessons can you share with us?
So from first of all, from the isolation, I started before, and I told you that people are today all over the world They are in their homes. It's easy. I'm sorry to say, it's bullshit. I'll tell you why. We have television, we have radio, we have phones, we have Wi-Fi, we have everything that we want. The idea is create your daily schedule. I mean, don't stay in your bed. Get rid of your pajama at 8 o'clock in the morning. Get dressed. Prepare breakfast. Have a schedule that you built up from the morning till the evening, every day, and it helps. It helps. Believe me.
Now, also the fact that you didn't know when you would be out from prison, you said you prepared yourself for years. How did you cope with that feeling, not knowing if and when it would be over? What were the kinds of things that you told yourself, or the mental attitudes that you took to cope with taking things day by day, moment by moment?
The idea was that, first of all, I thought that it would take me some years. I didn't know that it would be a question of months. And once I was with positive thoughts, knowing that I'm going to spend there some 5, 6, 8 years, 10 years, I don't know how long. I had no expectations to be released on the next morning. And that, I mean, the idea is to think positively. That was the whole idea. And this is what I'm still doing today.
Well, when you say positively, what are those thoughts? Can you give me some examples?
Think positively. Think about nature. Think about the next days that will be better. Corona disease will pass by Passover. If not Passover, it will be Day of Independence. If it won't, no, we have to think positively. And in my small, little, tiny doing, I'm keeping. Look, I'm taking care of some hundreds of PTSD soldiers, wounded soldiers here in Israel. And we have a WhatsApp group, a few groups, and they are busy 24 hours a day, day and night,
Mm-hmm.
and only positive things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't allow anything negative to be brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it, we have a group of volunteers from our veterans that started volunteering, helping elderly people, bringing them food, all kind of things. We have English classes through Zoom. We have all kind of things. We try to stick to the positive side of life and positive thoughts, and this is how we manage to pass this time.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're understanding that it's temporary, that things will change, having faith that things will change, knowing that things will change, and then also adaptability, adapting to the scenario and doing what you can do within the situation as opposed to thinking about what you can't, right? But something else that you talked about just now, which I really want to talk about because I believe it's very important, and you even talked about this or alluded to it in the fact that your choice was rather to see people that would torture you rather than be on your own in self-isolation or in isolation, captivity. So talk me through how dangerous it is to try and cope with difficult situations alone. Talk us through the necessity in reaching out and connecting with others.
Okay. Got you. Listen, first of all, I'm running two non-profitable organizations. One is Rim Balayla for the Israeli POW veterans, and the second one is called Achiad, which is Brothers Forever. If I'm free to translate it, it is for the PTSD wounded veterans. And listen, from my experience, We need each other to heal. We need. I'm talking about veterans. We learned that with each other, we will heal quicker, better, and we will become much stronger. You can't do it alone. We need each other.
Yeah.
It is a must for us.
We're all united across the entire globe now in this situation, so we can all relate to each other on different levels. I also wanted to talk to you about something you kind of brought up before. I suppose a lot of us are being told to surrender to the process, to give over to the process, right? But how do you surrender? How do you learn to accept the process enough to be able to surrender to it?
You can't do anything. The individual person can't do anything to change it. The only possibility for you, or for me, or for anybody else, is to reflect his own existence area and change it or help it, let's say. The situation itself, it rules us at this moment. We can't go out. We have to wear masks, gloves, all kind of things. This is a must. We can't change it. What we can change is our feeling of our personal, close by area. This is what we can change. This is what we can reflect.
Absolutely. I also want to ask you about joy. And finding happiness, joy, some fun in a situation that might feel scary or unpleasant. Were you able to find joy in the situation that you were in captivity? How do you find ways of being happy or joyful in traumatic?
I joy. In Hebrew there is a saying, "Poor people joy." You know what it is? Poor people.
Poor people joy.
Yeah, poor people joy in Hebrew means that you find your joy from the most smallest, tiniest things that you meet on the way. So joy. When I got a meal, it was a joy. When I got a cup of water, for me it was a joy. If they moved the sack off my head, it was a joy. This is why I can sit today in the garden where I'm sitting right now, which is not my personal private garden, by the way. I can sit in the garden, listen to the birds, and it's a great joy for me. Just to hear and listen to the birds, it is something for me. To stand outside in an open area and feel the wind on my face. It is for me a joy. I don't need a Mercedes. I don't know what to do with it. I don't need jewelry. I need the most, the tiniest things that basically most of the people do not realize and appreciate.
You talked about the fact that you are happy now, today, for the difficult experiences that you went through during your time in captivity. Looking at the world now and what everybody's having to go through and learn some difficult lessons about perhaps the unsustainable ways we were living before, or how we might have to build an internal resilience to coping with the fact that we are not in control. We do not know what tomorrow is going to bring. The fact that we need to be adaptable and find a way towards acceptance, surrender. These are huge lessons. What do you hope the world learns from this experience?
first of all, I think that very important is the fact that the world is one. I mean, this is the greatest lesson that we can learn. No borders. Corona flies away. There are no borders. And it should be also with countries. I mean, to make sure that in some place there is a need for a certain thing which exists somewhere else, we should help. I mean, it's a great lesson for us to notice, small, tiny things that we got from China, all the way from China, all the way, and no borders. So we have to take care to have it in consideration for the future, because once it happens this way, it will happen again. So we have to take it in consideration.
Certainly.
For the leaders.
Mm.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think that lesson should be.
First of all, as I said, no borders. The air, the wind takes it all over.
What we're trying to say maybe is that we realize that these borders are constructed by us, because I heard you say the leaders need to.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. 4 months ago, I was on Annapurna mountain in in Nepal. Okay, and I met the Nepali people over on top of 5,500 meters above sea level, and they are praying on top of the mountains to the winds and to the water. And I asked them why, and they told me the wind and the water take our prayers everywhere. There are no borders. Nothing will stop the wind and nothing will stop the water to reach the lowest place, the water in this case, and the wind to the other side of the world. And therefore we pray next to the water, next to the wind. So we have to adopt it. I mean, there are no borders. We should help each other. I don't know. It's a great philosophic thing to deal with.
Really, it is, right. And I think that's a beautiful note to end on, for us to think about ways that we can start working together, better together, even if it's just within our community, and then expanding out from there. Uri, thank you so much for sharing your story and all of that wisdom with us. I appreciate it so much.
All the love from Jerusalem, Mount Scopus, I am at this moment. All the love wherever it goes. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.